Welcome back to the Rundown podcast. My name is Abe Hicks, joined by my main man, Dylan Kearns. We are back better than ever. Spring training games are fully underway. Dylan, how you doing?
Great. That music's making me boogie over here, Abe. I love it. It's a nice little intro, gets everybody going. It's quick hitting, just like us with our takes. And a lot of these players you talk about spring training games underway. A lot of
Yes,
players
sir.
stepping up and playing well. We talked about the last time in the intro, Joe Musgrove getting rocked on the first game of the spring training season. He got shelled again on Monday, so off to a rough start for him, but everybody else seems to be having fun, getting their work in, and trying to make a good year come about.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. Speaking of some so slow starts, we got some news on Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger has decided to stay and re-sign with the Chicago Cubs. My initial reaction from that, I think it was more of a plan B. I think Scott Boras overplayed his hand there, and now they're looking at, I still want a long-term deal, but in the meantime, let me get this large sum of money in 1 year and have another shot at hitting the open market. What are your thoughts on Cody Bellinger resigning?
I thought it was a great move for the Cubs. I thought when you look at the Cubs organization, what they've done, it's actually very smart. And if you go back to see how they handle business with big players, they don't budge when it comes to players that they want. If they wanted Cody Bellinger, they liked him at their price and they're not moving off of it. Sure enough, he came about right back to them. When Anthony Rizzo asked for crazy money, the Cubs didn't give it to him. They stood their ground, and look, he's probably not making what he should. Chris Bryant wanted the money. The Cubs stood their ground. No. Javier Baez wanted money. The Cubs stood their ground. No. So it seems like the players are trying to ask for so much, especially these Boras clients. But the Cubs, time and time again, have proven that they may not have a fan base that loves their front office. But when they have their eyes set on a player, they don't budge and they don't move off of it. So they like a player for their certain value, and they're not afraid to let him walk. You've seen it happen with their big stars that they've accumulated over the years. If they don't like it, they'll move you, or they will just go ahead and go with something else in terms of replacing you on the roster. And that's time and time again we've seen it. The Cubs don't budge when it comes to their players.
Yeah, it makes me immediately think of Blake Snell. We see Blake Snell as a Scott Boras client, pretty much in the same situation. He's wanting a large sum of money for a large amount of years, and teams just aren't willing to give him that. So, and now Blake Snell still waiting. Who else is waiting? Jordan Montgomery still waiting. Matt Chapman, he's not on the team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty insane, pretty insane. Some other news from the past week: the two new Dodgers Japanese players, Yoshinobu Yamamoto made his debut. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, and looked pretty solid. And then Otani had his debut a few days ago and hit a home run. So maybe that's just a microcosm of what's to come for this year and the years to come for the Dodgers.
It's a lot of money dished out to those two stars. So hopefully it reaps what it sows so far. And hopefully these results that they're seeing in the spring translate to the regular season. And I actually have a take real quick. I know it's kind of off script here about the Los Angeles Dodgers. Everyone laughs about their playoff exit and what took place last year. But honestly, if you think about it, the way that it ended last year for the Los Angeles Dodgers, it was more of a regroup year. They knew that they didn't have a ton of talent on the roster. They lost their entire pitching staff with Buehler, the Urias situation we don't want to get into. But I mean, there's just they lost everything there, and it was kind of a year where they didn't spend too much in free agency. They took flyers on guys like Peralta and Hayward and played young kids like James Outman, Miguel Vargas. So and they still found a way to win so many games. So it was a retool year last year to set up them to spend money and go out there and be aggressive this year. So I don't get the playoff slander in terms of last season. Obviously, they've disappointed in years past with talented rosters, but I think those two stars will definitely improve their chances at more success this year.
Yes, sir. Reaping what you sow. That is the mantra, not just for the Dodgers. That's the mantra for all the teams in baseball during this time in spring training, preparing for the season. Reaping what you sow, meaning investing in their prospects, into their farm system, looking to see, hey, who are the guys that can potentially make the roster this year? Who are the guys that can help us out in September and August? This is the perfect time in spring training to get a good look at the guys you have down in your farm system, and that's what we're going to break down today. A lot of the I have a great feeling about the youth movement, you can say, in baseball. A lot of great young talent in the prospect ranks, and we're going to get into that. I know, Dylan, you've had your eyes on quite a few guys who are in camp currently. Who are your go-to prospects?
So I love Jackson Merrill for the San Diego Padres. I think that he is going to climb the ranks and make it to the big league level. If he could make the roster out of camp, I would not be shocked if Jackson Merrill is on the active roster when the San Diego Padres open up the season. He was a young kid that they got to start the year. He's someone that has really made strides so far in his young career. You've seen him play a plethora of positions as well. He's got someone that he's someone that can hit the ball. They need players on that team. They only have two players on their active roster that are outfielders. Fernando
Hmm.
Tatis and Jose Azocar are the only two players on their roster that are outfielders. So I still think they could have one more move left in the tank, but I don't know what they want to do there to get creative. Obviously, Ha-Seong Kim is the shortstop, but definitely something to look at there. I think Jackson Merrill's a big name that is shining so far through spring training.
Yeah, yeah. So I have quite a few guys here, and we can bounce off each other. But the first person I'm going to talk about, I'm going to tie it into the team he's playing with, and I what I see in the Washington Nationals currently, they kind of remind me of the Baltimore Orioles a few years ago, right? They have a lot of young talent stored away, whether it was from trades, being bad enough to draft highly, and I think they've done a pretty good job drafting and making deals and getting a good return on trades. James Wood is having a great start to spring training. He gives me Josh Bell vibes. Do you see that in James Wood,
I
or
do,
am I
I
the only
do.
one that thinks that?
You stole that right from me. I was ready to go James Wood. That was my
But
next guy queued
but
up.
you can still talk about him. I just wanted to highlight him with the Nationals.
Yeah.
He's not my main person that I'm highlighting with the Nationals. But they got James Wood, Robert Hassel, Brady House. But the one player I do want to highlight, their number one prospect, and Dylan Cruz. I like this guy. I didn't like him at LSU because I'm a Florida Gators fan, and it hurt seeing him tear up the Florida Gators. But he gives me a glimpse of a young Trey Young, or I'm sorry, not a young Trey Young. This isn't basketball. A young Trey Turner. He can spray the ball around the field. He's always making good contact. Has really good speed. Can command the outfield. I think the Nats have a for sure productive future big leaguer in Dylan Cruz.
Yeah, I think that the Nationals are building something the way you talk about it. Like the young talent that they have is just off the charts. Like players that can step up and make big league rosters. I think Cruz, being a college player, definitely has a faster track to the big leagues. But I want to go back to James Wood just for 1 second here and talk. I love James Wood. James Wood is someone who he hit 26 bombs in the minor leagues last year. He was one of the top prospects in the Padres system. Obviously, the Juan Soto trade sends him over there along with Mackenzie Gore, who he's kind of disappointed. But look at
Yeah.
James Wood in terms of what he can bring to the table. A left-handed stick that just drives the baseball. He steps in that box and just hits absolute tanks. I think what he could bring to the table is a power speed combo, play solid right field. I think he's someone that could definitely impact this team. He could also, I wouldn't rule it out, making the roster out of camp. He's definitely a stick that will see some time. If not, he might be one of those service time casualties that take place towards April or May in terms of when he will break the club. But James Wood is definitely someone I have my eye on and someone who flashes home run potential. Last year really was a breakout year for him. Still only 21 years old as well.
Yeah, huge fan of James Wood, and transitioning to another big hefty lefty, but into the AL East, Spencer Jones for the New York Yankees. I don't think opening day he'll be on the roster, but we will see him at some point this year, I believe. Dylan, I got a question for you. Who has been the last hitter that the Yankees have developed?
Greg Bird was a whiff. I guess you could say Gary Sanchez was a whiff. Oswald Cabrera, Peraza, whatever they are, they suck. Um, they got Glaber in a trade. You can't say it was Glaber.
Right.
Um, truly drafted and developed, it's got to be Judge.
Aaron Judge. He's going to be the first hitter the Yankees have developed since Aaron Judge, who is that's his comp. That's Spencer Jones' comp. Everybody thinks that they're very similar in their game, and I see it. Everybody sees it. Uh, Brian Cashman came out and said when they were looking for trades this past offseason, opposing teams were always bringing up Spencer Jones. So a lot of teams admired the potential of Spencer Jones. They all saw something in him. How they were able to shield him from the Padres and the Juan Soto trade is still incredible to me. But if he comes up and shows out, there's a pretty packed outfield in the Bronx with Judge, Soto, Verdugo, Trent Grisham, Oswaldo Cabrera, and potentially Spencer Jones. That can be a good problem to have if I'm Aaron Boone and the Yankees. We saw him with that flash of power the other day, the 470-foot bomb. I'm excited to see what that looks like in Yankee Stadium.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think he can provide a lot of value to that lineup too. Definitely from the young standpoint, they need young baseball players, and that's someone that can definitely step up there for them.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'll go to my last player here, and then you can go to however players you have left. Last one I want to talk about, probably my favorite prospect right now, Wyatt Langford in the Texas Rangers system. He was the 4th overall pick last year, and he's currently the 6th overall prospect. But Dylan, listen to what he did in the minor leagues last year. He got drafted in July, and he made it all the way up to Double-A. He batted .360, 10 home runs with 30 RBIs, and an OPS of 1.157, and a 161 ABs in the minor leagues last year. That's insane. That is insane. And if you also think about it, the Rangers lack depth in their outfield. This is what their outfield looks like right now. Evan Carter, who's he's the 5th overall prospect, Adolis Garcia, and Travis Jankowski. Dylan, he can without a doubt make the opening day roster and make an impact day one.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think Langford brings a lot to the table. You mentioned the numbers; it's just insane to start a career in terms of where that's going. One more name I want to bring up, and then I have one little teaser that's kind of a heartfelt prospect towards the end here. But right here, the last one that I'll bring up first is Owen Casey with the Chicago Cubs. Minor League Player of the Year last year, 289, 25 plus bombs. He was someone. Now, if you remember back when the Cubs made this big trade with the San Diego Padres, with the Yu Darvish trade, the Cubs got back like 4 prospects that were 17, 18 years old. They didn't care that they weren't top name prospects. They didn't care that they didn't get a top 10 guy in their system. All they wanted was all these young kids that the Cubs tried to develop. And right now it's worked out pretty well with some of the names they got there. But the front runner for one of the top names is Owen Casey. And Owen Casey, someone that can, I don't think he might come up at some point this year for the Chicago Cubs, but you look at what he can bring, that power combination. They have him working out at first base. Obviously, now it doesn't hurt. You have Matt Mervis in the system. Michael Busch got traded for. Bellinger's back, but you still have the center field depth with the entire outfield depth really in that Cubs system. But you look at an Owen Casey, he's just another left-handed stick to a lineup that still lacks left-handed power. He could be someone that works his way up. He finished the year in Double-A last year. He'll probably start in Triple-A after posting 289 numbers last year. I think he'll start in Triple-A, and you could see him up towards the end of the season. And if barring any injury, any season-ending injury, he might have a faster track to the bigs than what we expect.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm really excited to see his growth and what he can potentially do out in Wrigley Field. Now, moving on to
I got one more
yeah,
here.
go ahead.
One more thing, kind of a full circle moment here. So last year, I covered a kid in high school by the name of Colt Emerson, and he played at John Glenn High School, one of the schools I covered when I was in the sports reporter days, and interviewed the kid ready for his big senior year, projected first-round pick. Season goes on. I'm there at his final game, interviewing him before the end of his final game, and he's looking forward to the MLB draft. Then a couple months later, I'm sitting there at Buffalo Wild Wings in New Concord, Ohio, when Colt gets his name called by the Seattle Mariners. And he was selected a top 20 pick there for Seattle in that system. So it was really cool just to kind of see that full circle moment come along. He raked in the minor leagues last year for a first round pick out of all high school players, 18 years old. Just tore up the minor leagues, and won a championship with the Modesto Nuts in Low A. So worked his way through that. Yesterday, he made his spring training debut for the Seattle Mariners. He walked and struck out, and he was 0 for 2 in that game. But still, a full circle moment for someone who, within a span of a year, I meet, cover him throughout his high school, his final year, his senior year, interact with his parents and all that stuff. They're on draft day, and finally making his spring training debut yesterday.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he's with the Mariners right now in camp down in Arizona. I had no idea. And what was the minor league team he played for last year?
The Modesto Nuts.
What a name.
They
What a
all
name.
got great
You
names.
gotta love
Gumby
minor leagues.
Biscuits. I love it. Crash Pandas, the Jumbo Shrimp.
That's
That's
amazing. All right. All right. Well, moving along to we have some players that are also joining camp with a lot of teams that are looking to make a resurgence in the big leagues. Once upon a time, they were household names, making a huge difference on World Series contending teams. Dylan, I know you wanna take a crack at this. Who do you got here?
I want to talk about Pablo Sandoval. This is kind of just a weird situation if you look at what Pablo Sandoval does here. Now, he had this ceremonial send off on his last game with the Giants not too long ago. This was before he joined the Atlanta Braves. They built up this whole thing. Pablo walked off the field. It was late September. They're like, all right, this is probably the last time we're going to see Pablo Sandoval in a Giants uniform unless he becomes a coach. Well, then he goes over to the another league during the winter and starts playing. He gets in a fight a couple of years ago. There's a viral video like a year or two ago about Pablo Sandoval in a benches clearing brawl. You want to look that up. It's pretty hilarious. But Pablo then decides, you know what, I'm coming back to the Giants, signs a minor league deal with the team, and has a camp invite. He shows up thinner than a thin man. I mean, he just comes in ready to play baseball. And I'm like, where was this? The Boston Red Sox got to be pissed seeing a guy showing up. He knows that he's on his last life here, and he's reaching out before the water sinks him under, before his career ends. So he's just gasping for air at the top right now. And he lost a ton of weight trying to rejuvenate his career. Definitely one to keep an eye on in terms of just fun stories in camp. He could be someone that breaks the ball club or at least provides some sort of role to that team.
Yeah, that'd be intriguing to see. I can definitely see Pablo as, I guess you can say, the adult in the room, the veteran who's been there, won titles, and played a huge impact on those three San Francisco Giants title teams. But yeah, I definitely would. I'm excited to see the impact that Pablo Sandoval can bring back to the Giants.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. He's got to be fun to the clubhouse. Definitely losing some of that leadership that you have there. But you still have an older bunch, to be honest. You look at Austin Slater
For
spending
sure.
time there, Mike Yastrzemski, Wilmer Flores is no youngster by any stretch of the imagination. So they still have a lot of old players on that team, but it's got to be nice to have a spirit like Pablo around.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And I know another one you wanted to talk about, Cookie, Carlos Carrasco. I remember where he was basically the number two on that 2016 Cleveland Indians at the time. That World Series team that they had. Yeah, unpack Carlos Correa. I'm sorry, not Carlos Correa. Carlos Carrasco, and him making a comeback this year.
Yeah, you look at Carlos Carrasco, someone who's the last couple of years injuries have kind of ridiculed him. He spent time with the New York Mets, and then sort of just his career ever since he left Cleveland hasn't been great. And so it's kind of cool. The reason I brought up Pablo and then Carlos Carrasco is the impact that they both have on their cities. So it's a reuniting the two together. So Pablo goes back to San Francisco trying to make the ball club. Carlos Carrasco here, he's got his work cut out for him. No pun intended with the nickname Cookie. You look at that rotation. It's a lot of young pitchers, and they're an organization right now that can't really afford to go with an older starter there. They want to see how the younger ones develop. I mean, you have Bieber, McKenzie, Bybee, Logan Allen, and then Gavin Williams. Those are kind of five that are locked in. So I don't know what kind of role he would provide if he breaks the club. Maybe he gets a bullpen role. You see a lot of older guys down towards the end of their career go in a bullpen role, but he's definitely someone that's a fan favorite. I know Guardians fans all around the world are big Carlos Carrasco fans. He brought the spirit over a long stretch of great performances over the last few years in Cleveland. So took a little time away from the ball club, struggled a little bit, but now he kind of gets one last shot to see if he has a big league career left in him.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm excited to see what Carlos Carrasco can do with this now team. And then we were transitioning to our last topic here. Last week we were discussing a bunch of guys we saw growing up throughout our childhood and kind of reliving those days about, wow, this guy used to play for this team. Wow, that's a name I haven't heard of. And I know we do that often, and we're like, man, we should probably turn this into a segment. Who was the guy that I named last week that kind of tipped us off?
I can't remember off the top of my head. You were talking about a couple ball players, but I mean, there's so many out there. Like, I think when you find out some guys are still in the league, and usually it takes till about this time, about March, it really just stumps you thinking, man, like, is that guy still trying to make it? Like, I found out, so a couple names I wrote down. Corey Knables is in camp right now. He was like a 30, 40 game. He was a closer over Hader a couple years ago.
You're
And he's in
right.
camp. He's with the Phillies, I believe, or yeah, I think he's in camp with the Phillies or the White Sox, one of those two. Josh Harrison's in camp with the Reds. There are a couple names. Jesse Chavez is still trying to give it a go with the White Sox. And then also a couple, like right now, names you may have forgotten about. Yours was Chris Paddock.
Chris Paddock, yes.
That's who it was.
Yes.
But, I mean, there's three starters that come to mind right now that I think, okay, people are either out on or they forgot about. One, Alek Manaea. No one even talks about him anymore. He was an all-star, and everyone was raving about him at the all-star game. He has a terrible year last year, gets sent down to single A, and people forget about him. He's lost some weight. He's not as much as Pablo, but he's lost some weight. Wow. And then one more, Sixto Sanchez is back on a big league mound.
Oh, yeah. Wow, I forgot about him too. Huh. Well, I kind of took an older route here. I started finding names out of my brain, old guys who we saw growing up. And I got one for you, Dylan. And the fans are going to love this. R.A. Dickey.
Wow.
You remember that guy?
Yeah, R.A. Dickey. That's a name right there. That's a throwback.
R.A. Dickey is the true definition of a one-hit wonder. This man won a Cy Young with the Mets, right? Went 20-6, led the league in strikeouts, and the next year he got a bag from the Toronto Blue Jays, and then he fell off the face of the earth. We haven't heard him, seen him since.
Yeah, he was definitely someone that brought it. I mean, it's sometimes all it takes is 1 year to put your name in the history. I mean, I can't speak to this because it's definitely someone who had a long big league career in terms of innings and racking up performances. But there was 1 year as an outlier. What about Rick Porcello?
Rick Porcello, yes, he was great with the Tigers, and then I believe he had that year with the Red Sox, where he just went off, and he won a Cy Young. Was that 2016?
Yeah, Anibal Sanchez, another one. He really only had 1 year. Ubaldo Jimenez.
Oh, Dylan, I got one for you. I got another one for you. And it's not just one player during this time period. It's a few of these players, but they all share the same last name, the Cabreras. And I'm not talking Miguel Cabrera, because everybody knows who that is. I'm talking Asdrubal Cabrera.
Yeah.
Remember him? At one time, he was a wizard at shortstop. He was, I kid you not, he was on SportsCenter's top 10 every single night, Dylan.
He was a good ball player. I liked watching him play. He killed lefties, being a switch hitter. It was kind of weird how, I mean, obviously someone has one dominant side, but Asdrubal always found a way to get on base right-handed.
Yeah, and a few other Cabreras here. Orlando Cabrera, Melky Cabrera. No, he's a former Yankee. Yeah.
Melky.
Melky. Yeah, yeah. And one more I got for you. You're gonna be like, whoa. I think you're gonna forget how good this guy was. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. I'm gonna botch his name. Chone Figgins.
Sean Figgins, little second baseman. Yeah,
Chon Figgins.
he was
Yes.
something
His
else.
last year with the his last year with the LA Angels in 2009, he batted 298, had 42 steals. He led the league in walks and was an all-star. And Dylan, he finished 10th in AL MVP voting.
That's crazy. That's
I know.
crazy. Imagine ending your career like that.
I know. I went back and saw that. I was like, there's no way. Chone Figgins. That little dude is
I'll
a
say
monster.
this. There's a story that needs to be unpacked. No one ever talks about it, but I'll bring it up here. There's a player that not only may you not have forgotten about, it's the early 2000s, maybe 2010 when you get to it. I'm just going to read you some numbers here. Do you remember Hank Blaylock?
Yeah. He's with the Rangers now, like works in their front office, right?
Hank Blaylock does work in their front office, but I want to talk about why his playing career came to an end because it still baffles me. So he got his debut in 2002, struggled a little bit, but then he won. He was back to back All Stars in 03 and 04. 29 homers, 32 homers, 300, 276 those 2 years. He crushed. He crushed at the plate. His last year in Texas was 2009. Hit 25 homers and 234. So his average dipped a little bit that year. But then he went to Tampa Bay, hit one home run, 254, but only in 26 games. That was his age 29 season.
Wow. I forgot
So
about that.
explain to me how someone who has a career 269 batting average with 153 home runs, why does his career come to an end at 29? There were no injuries reported, nothing going on there. So it's kind of one of those why did their careers come to an end type of things.
Hmm. Why did his career come to an end? He just got released? Like
Nobody wanted him.
nobody want oh, it was one of those type things.
It doesn't make sense. If I'm Matt
Wow.
Chapman, I'm holding on to this to dear life.
Yeah. Yes. Because we live in a world where we'll forget about you just like that.
It almost happened. Like he had a great revival. Thank goodness teams were interested. It almost happened to Michael Conforto,
Yeah.
where his
Michael
career just ended,
Conforto. Yes.
but he got saved by a death line or a helpline from the Giants.
Yes. No doubt. No doubt. Well,
Ian
that's all
Desmond.
we who?
Ian Desmond.
Ian
He had
Desmond.
2020. So he was the Rocky center fielder 2019, opts out in COVID year 2020. He's done. Never heard of
Haven't
again.
heard from him since. That's right. Ian Desmond. Man, that's a good name. Hey, anybody watching or listening, if you have any old time names like early 2000s, early teens, any big league guys that we forget about, drop the names in the comments. I would love to see them and rehash my childhood, our childhood. But thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. We're going to bring you the Rundown podcast weekly every Thursday, and you'll have this Friday morning. That's our goal. If you are new to the channel, new to the Rundown Media, follow us on our socials, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, follow us all, and we'll have baseball content for you the rest of spring training and this whole year. We appreciate all the support. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week.